to see that happen consistently.
Yeah, one of the other things that hurts him is Azir's not in the meta. I feel like Azir is
Yeah,
historically, comfortably his best champion. The Kassadin as well, actually, one of the ones that I feel like he plays like an early game Kassadin, and somehow it works. It begs belief, but let's look at the bans as we get into our first series here. Ari, Yuumi, Milio, banned away. AL, they know the OP picks, and they're taking them off of the board.
Ooh.
Kisante and Lee will be the answer from NIP, and then a Rakan.
Well, this is the thing.
Ban.
Yeah, because that last ban, if you are NIP in that position, you think there is Nico, there is Nocturne, there is Vi on the table as well. You're going to let something through that's OP. And typically what you do on red side is you try and leave enough powerful stuff open that you can snap up 2 things in response. Even something like a Aphelios has been very high priority still in the LPL, works in a lot of different lane matchups, and also having some build diversity as well between Gale Force and Stormrazor. A lot of the time they end up going into the same build, but which one you build first can change the way you play out a lot of different matchups. However, though, a bit different, Maokai hasn't seen the same priority that it did in spring when he was incredibly overpowered, but is still going to be locked in early here for NIP to be that defensive range and space-giving jungler.
Yeah, so NIP getting something, I want to say almost defensive in the Maokai, in that jungle. Shadow, you think of him, you think of like Lee Sin, you think of going aggressive in the jungle, but the Maokai, much more of a team-oriented pick. The Aphelios that you mentioned will be locked in as well. Do we see the Graves jungle as an early lock-in? That would surprise me, but well, Lee Sin's taken off the board, Maokai's locked in. I would love to see it. I would love to see a little bit more diversity, but you would anticipate the Wukong, the Vi, these kinds of things. And Jinx will be the lock-in for now.
So Jinx is going to be locked in, so you're going to have, you know, the very long-range AD carries, which we've seen for a very long time now. Kind of started spring last year. We had Jinx Aphelios meta. We have, as all things do in League of Legends, rotated back to the same few metas over a couple of years. But seeing Xiaohao hovering over that Graves, a lot of the time when anyone's Legend would get wins in spring, it was through early pressure champions, like the Lee Sin, which is obviously banned on that red side because it was so impactful. Locking in the Wukong now as well, I think that is more the style of jungler which I would prefer to see from anyone's Legends jungler, to have a little bit more of that early burst and dueling potential, which we've seen them succeed with, even though their successes were few and far between in spring.
Well, the Jace is going to come through for Angel, which should allow for a lot of mid lane priority, should be able to contest the Nico somewhat at very least. The bans come on through though. And I'm curious what the focus will be. Could be supports, yeah. The Lulu taken off with the Jinx already locked in. Trying to remove things that will be able to protect that Jinx could be the solution. Things like a Thresh maybe could even be taken off the board.
Well, one of the things you do have to protect right now is, because of course Jinx will have to pay a lot of attention to the Maokai ultimate. One of the reasons Wukong is very good into Maokai is you can just press the clone backwards, your clone eats up one of the tendrils of the Nature's Grasp. Jinx sits in that little gap and just kind of takes some cover behind that. That can help in some different situations. You're absolutely right. I think particularly when you're playing around very bursty compositions, you need something which will just buy a little bit of safety for that Jinx. I'm expecting maybe a melee support out of that front as well, just something that can tank up a couple of skill shots, despite the fact that Jinx is typically very good with enchanters, and you see that Lulu banned away. The front line from AL needs to come in somewhere, so you're either expecting that tank support, or maybe something like that Jace, the Sion in the top side, depending on if you think you can take something like that into a Jace, if it flexes up there.
Yeah, we'll see. The Gragas taken off the board, which again would kind of fulfill that role of the tanky front line. It's NIP reading the situation similarly to you, but actually banning away the Gwen. RAL, not wanting Invincible to have that
Sion.
carry himself.
That says, we want Sion, and we don't want to deal with the steps.
Yeah, true. Nautilus going to be hovered. Nautilus Aphelios, not a surprising duo to see.
No, not at all. It's very consistent. As soon as you hit 1 to 2 items, that combo is just always finding a target and doing something very impactful with that one. See that the Leona being hovered over. We've also been through a lot of those different metas between those melee supports. You are, however, at a point now where you're getting outranged by Maokai and Jace. Something like a Blitzcrank can add in a bit of that X factor. Something like a Solar Flare, again, very long range engage to stop you just sitting at that extended range where even though Jinx has the very high range, you're still having some issues with that, with what NIP have on the table.
Well, Leona's going to be locked in, which, to be fair, Leona, we don't see that much of these days. I feel like Leona Nautilus feels like, oh, this again, but actually that's from years ago. It's been a while since it was, I say years ago, probably last year, but it's been a while since we saw Leona Nautilus as a standard. Sion, as we mentioned before, will be locked in the end. And a Gnar to answer. So Invincible should have a whale of a time if he's left isolated up in the top side. But Jinx Leona versus Aphelios Nautilus. While Jinx and Aphelios have been seeing a lot of daylight, pun intended, Leona coming back in. This feels like a 2020 matchup. Or 2021 maybe.
Yeah, a number of years ago, we got so used to seeing this support matchup that it's just kind of stuck in the back of our heads. But actually, most of the time, it's been you know, a lot of Renata before that point. Probably a bit more of the Lulu. Of course, Yumi's come and gone as well, and is back on the ban table once again. What we have now with these compositions coming in, though, is quite a dangerous combo coming in from NIP, where they have a lot of very good poke, where you have something like an Aphelios ult adding into a burst combo from very long range. You have Maokai and Jace. That's a combo we've seen an awful lot through Spring. And you have good side lanes. So I think what this game is going to come down to is anyone's Legend trying to find a way to group up and stop that side lane of the Gnar and the Jace really taking over before things really start falling apart. They need to start grouping up and use that Jinx as their power point.
Well, we'll see if they can. The Jinx, in my mind, one of the strongest champions in the game currently. I feel like there's a lot of champions that are being talked about as being incredibly overpowered, but when it comes to team fighting later on, for my money, Jinx wins that 100% of the time against the Aphelios. The range advantage just feels so strong a lot of the time, but like you say, the Jace can be the difference maker when it comes to that range advantage. If we can get the poke down, Maokai could close the gap, Nautilus can close the gap. There will be pressure towards anyone's Legends AD carry as we head into game number 1 on Summoner's Rift. Get this matchup underway.
I completely got jump scared by that horse. I didn't know that skin had that one. It's like, oh, hi there, friend.
I mean, it wasn't that scary. I don't know if jump scare is the phrase.
I like to think it's kind of like a bit more of a vague term now, jump scare. Are you actually scared, or is it just like an exclamation of shock? Either way, you know, language is a wonderful thing. Just wasn't expecting the horse, honestly.
Yeah, it did get awfully horsey in here for a second there. Let's talk early game, though. Let's talk early game between these teams, because I feel like Wukong and Maokai. I mean, Maokai, you really can be aggressive if you want to in terms of getting in your lanes, but we don't necessarily see that often. Quite often we see Maokai picked much more for control in the early game. Would you anticipate Shadow trying to get his lanes ahead early on?
So the way that I view... Well, we'll have to see if he's going to have that choice, because we can see that ZDZ sit up here. He's probably started Q. Can he kill any of them? And he wants, he can. He gets all of them.
Got all of them. Shadow has just been absolutely robbed. It is literal daylight robbery.
I don't think we're going to see the Maokai in any lanes, because he's not got level 2. He gets robbed of that. You have to get the majority of the small raptors and the large ones. You get that level 2. Not going to have that choice. You're going to be delayed at that point. The Shadow going to have to find an extra kind of couple of camps, really, before he can start matching that pressure which a Wukong can put out.
I love that ZDZ also dropped a ward on the Krugs. So Xiaohao doesn't even need to out-jungle Shadow right now, because ZDZ is out-jungling Shadow to start this game off. There's a hook from Joe, but not much more from the back of the trade. iBoy and Zora get level 2. Full respect from Photo Control, as you would expect here. And it will be fairly standard. I'm looking towards that mid lane, though. Harder. His first game of the split here. Looking towards Angel and getting some good trades out so far. Does have that Nico, so set up for success in his first game.
Yeah, Nico has been first pick worthy. He was first pick in this game as well. And the most interesting thing about this champion, talked about it a lot yesterday, is that I love seeing this champion because it shows a very different skill set. I have to see whether that comes into play, though, whether it's going to be more junglers. Xiaohao finding Shadow.
I mean, Xiaohao knew exactly where he was because the wards from earlier. Shadow in a bit of trouble, but doesn't have to flash. Angel goes to hover. But ultimately, Xiaohao just having this bottom quadrant for free now. That'll be a blue buff and a Gromp going his way. The Shadow tries to make his way up to the opposite side of the map where he has prio through Invincible.
Yeah, so really Invincible, saving Shadow's skin a little bit, will give him some access to the top quadrant. Harder, I don't think he's going to interact with this top jungle, even if he does teleport back. You'd need Xiaohao to be on that same side of the map, which of course he's taking the bot quadrant right now. It's not going to happen. So Shadow, difficult early game so far, but at least getting something back in the form of that topside scuttle. Actually, that's even that's worth talking about as well. Doesn't even get into those camps, doesn't feel safe enough to do so. Just has to settle for the scuttle right now.
Yeah, I mean, Shadow being put really far behind to kick us off.
ZDC, no, you can't
moving
do this
over.
man.
He's like, look, this
You
is
can't do
my
this.
jungle, Shadow. The top half of the map is ZDZ's jungle. Walks in, denies the sapling. Shadow will replace that, but again, will not get access to those camps. And so now, Xiaohao can just move back over to the top side of the map. He's going to get 3 quadrants for himself. And Shadow, I mean, he needs to reattach to Peter Pan at this point.
Someone get a needle and a thread, gonna have to find his way back onto the body he belongs to. And this is gonna have a lot of implications for later into the game, because we talked about the Jace being quite important for NIP. A lot of the reason why the Jace is very strong in the meta is because you can combo up Jace with something like a Maokai. What Maokai does is buy space for the Jace, because you throw out the ultimate, Jace gets to stand behind the Nature's Grasp and throw out some Shock Blasts for free. If your Maokai is behind or late as the level 6 or under threat because you're so far behind in the game, obviously the Jace is kind of impacted by proxy from that. So, Anyone's Legend, putting that Maokai behind, helps them out very much so later into the game.
It certainly does. It's a good start for them. It's invincible. You know, we'll have a advantage in terms of, like, trading in theory in this top lane as he loses a trade to ZDZ there. Should have the range advantage, but not building himself up too much of a lead just yet. Perhaps he'll be able to find more of that once he's head back to base and for himself. But a very quiet early game. Drake now onto the map. And I feel like Xiaohao, with the advantages he's found in this early game, and with a Nico in the mid lane, you'd hope he'd be able to look towards that objective.
Yeah, I do agree with that. When you see that Shadow working his way down towards the spot lane, this is normally what we see from Maokai. You were kind of asking the question earlier about how Shadow can get into lanes. Typically, Maokai is a champion that wants to respond to a gank rather than flashing forward to make one himself. So I think right there, Shadow playing into that part of Maokai's playstyle actually has matched Xiaohao on the correct side of the map, but will get spotted again. Shadow has basically been on vision the entirety of the game. So again, struggling to get anything in there.
At this point, his name has become ironic.
Yeah.
the shadow he's casting is from the wards he's walking past at this point. Yeah, bit of tough early game for Shadow. Is not necessarily anything he's done wrong per se. It's more just everything AL has done this game has been. He
loaded into the game, and that was
game.
the great sin that he committed. He chose to connect to the server.
Yeah. We're actually going to see ZDZ just ulting up towards the top side. So top laners will not be interacting with this Drake, as Invincible does manage to crash a massive wave, but it is gone. ZDZ just one-shots it with his ult, and again, managing to maintain relatively even CS up that top side for ZDZ, which is good to see on the Sion. Quite often you can see advantages built up there. But it doesn't feel like either team's confident necessarily to just brute force the Drake, as Xiaohao moves in, trying to fight for vision control, but there is a ward and a Scuttle Crab there for NIP.
We're getting to the point where first ultimates of the game are going to become much more apparent soon, though. Watch out for, again, you talk about that first dragon. I think Herald also typically very important points, particularly when you have one team which is very strong in side lanes, when you have like a Nara and Jace. Herald becomes quite important to make sure that you don't lose a tower very early to get that split pushing team ahead, or you get to blow open a side lane tower to kind of stop that side lane pressure coming up so early as well for your own team. So I think Herald, looking for those first ultimates, the first Pop Blossom, the first Solar Flare, that can be very important to watch as well. And I think Anyone's Legend, until those come up, they're pretty happy to chill.
Yeah, certainly will be. And happy to take it slow. And, you know, in this current meta, not surprising to see teams take it slow. I do want to quickly mention Harder as well, because a few of you at home may have seen this guy's name before. He's been on the AL roster for quite a while at this point. But he's not actually played that much LPL. He's mostly been a substitute on the roster. He's actually only got 6 games of LPL underneath his belt. And
that's 6 more than you and me, man.
That's a lot more than I have. Yeah, that's for true. But that's for true. Those words don't go together.
You speak the word good.
Yeah, but the key thing here is, like, he's getting another opportunity here on AL, replacing PinZ today, to see what he could bring to the table. He's got the Nico. I'm hoping for a big game as he goes for the flash. But Angel reads the play, flashes himself, gets out to safety. Perhaps could have waited for Xiaohao to go in first there.
Maybe, but I think I think the engage range might have been a little too long. See that NIP though, despite the fact that Pop Blossom's been used and the fact that they managed to get Invincible down to this Herald early, have not managed to find themselves onto the Herald after that point. It's reset, but now Xiaohao has the angle.
Here we go, behind enemy lines, Invincible has to jump away. Shadow, the next target, is there comes Nico, and Harder finds himself first blood. Invincible wants to answer, but I don't think he can 1v3 this. The rest of the team is not coming, he's mega nah, but that would be full-on 1v3 as Nautilus in the mid lane alongside Angel cracking the way.
Yeah, Harder, first game back in the LPL after that spring substituting in, and he breaks some Nico kneecaps. Doesn't even need the Pop Blossom to do that. I've been preparing that for so long, you have no idea. This champion being meta, wonderful, chef's kiss. But even not having that Pop Blossom, AL walk away with an important kill. They deny the Herald being taken very early into the game. Going back into this replay though, it's very important to realize that despite the fact that Jace survives, Jace has no impact on this fight. You don't have a shot glass coming in, you don't have a big Maokai ultimate coming in. And NIP feels like after that Herald reset, why are you still here? It feels like they just overstay and they get punished for it.
Yeah, looking for a fight that they couldn't realistically get. And also, like, Xiaohao came from the mid lane gank and basically just went up past Herald. Just sort of walked past the whole NIP, essentially, and somehow pulls off the flag. Perhaps should have been a little more aware of what was going on there. But we go back to Herald once more as Xiaohao. Let's go for the Drake in the meantime. This time, NIP should be able to get it.
Should do. And it's a base Mountain Dragon. Very, very important when you have the likes of Leona and Sion on your team to get huge value out of that percentage increased resists. And that might help stave off some of that side lane pressure, some of that poke as well later into the game. So giving up Herald is not really what you want to do as anyone's legend if you can potentially help that. But if you're going to trade it for that Dragon and you've also delayed that Herald, I think that's still an okay trade of neutral objectives for that team.
Yeah, not too bad. Just depends on how the Herald is used. It's always the big question that comes up when you do trade, is how much value do you get out of your Herald? Good to see that despite the Herald being taken on the top side by NIP, we don't see that traded for an AD carry getting 5 plates to the bottom side as AL really wants this move on.
There might be a fight here.
Photic's over the wall with red and white. This could be good for Photic if he can find the target. Zora the target for now. Moonlight Vigil. That'll be one for the Aphelios. In the meantime, Shadow walking away with his life. Doesn't have his ult available. Already used that one, and the rest of the team there for AL. Perhaps he needs to back off a little bit quicker.
Went in deep, did anyone's legend, and the unfortunate taxi over the wall after the Zenith play connected made things a little bit awkward. Zora on that Leona. Still going to end up being a 1-for-1. Still going to end up being the camps afterwards going towards anyone's legend. But while all this is happening, of course, Invincible does get himself that second plate up towards that top side, and this side lane split push Nah is going to become a little bit problematic. You can see the starts of it right now, significant CS advantage, significant plate advantage too, but at the cost of that, you're losing on the bot side of the map. This was the kind of awkward moment when you realize actually you're in a choke point against a Maokai, and despite the fact that Shadow has no flash and is a little bit behind, this is not the kind of terrain you want to be fighting on. And for a brief moment, NIP do get some advantages.
Yeah. It's the second that ZDZ starts channeling that TP, Angel just turns around, he's like, I'm out. Shadow tries to get out as well. They realize that that's a play that they cannot win 4v5. And so it's kind of the trade, right? We mentioned the CS advantage. Invincible managed to get a couple of plates there, managed to proxy a wave or two because he didn't TP. I think his TP was actually still on cooldown. He TP'd after the sign.
And you know what? You know what completely messes with my head? The fact that that teleport happened and I thought, oh, it's too early for Unleashed Teleport. It must have been a teleport to a turret. It's been changed, folks. 10 minutes is now when you can teleport to anything. And, you know, just got to retrain that muscle memory.
Yeah. The teleports really have been unleashed, if you will. As ZDZ taking advantage of that, and rightly so. When you're playing the Sion, you really do want to be impacting the rest of the map. Like, you're not going to win 1v1. You're not going to, like, find an advantage in your lane. So, getting out and getting an assist for his team and denying the play from NIP, because the play was looking fantastic for NIP. Like, remember, Zora had already gone down. Photic had a million shurikens stacked up. Shadow was going from one side. Angel was flanking. Like, without that TP, that's a really dicey play for anyone's legend. So really, really good stuff from ZDZ to kind of save the play for his team.
So, getting back into a little bit more of a sense of normalcy, waiting for the next big play to happen. Harold, we were asking what is going to happen with this? How much value are you going to get out of it? The gold looks like it's going over towards Photic on this. Fellows did pick up that kill from the last fight as well, so now a significant advantage open up in that bot lane, which is very important because it feels like the Gnar on the top side of the map getting advantages all by his lonesome, and that's going to get worse as the game goes on. Getting this Aphelios ahead of the curve early on, though, definitely helps when you can sometimes struggle to pull ahead of the Jinx on your own.
Yeah, you certainly can. It's fun to see Photic and Draw succeeding in this bottom lane as well. Like, you know, Photic having an advantage in this early game. Photic, a player, used to be on top esports, Draw as well. Not at the same time, but two previous top esports players now united on NIP. And I feel like both players that had like big potential to succeed, they've both shown big moments in their careers, but it's never been consistent, right? And I feel like that's almost the story of NIP. Like Angel, we talked about earlier, like has those big moments, but not necessarily the most consistent player. You've got Shadow, who, again, like when he looks good, he looks amazing. I remember last year, multiple times on LGD, it felt like he was the only part of that team that was functioning well. Invincible has had some big games. I felt like this whole roster is like players that have shown, perhaps with the right coaching, perhaps with the right team environment, they could be big players, but have yet to really manage to succeed in that fashion, aside from maybe Angel back in 2020.
It was so close to photo control, though, particularly on the V5 lineup that they were on. They were the best, like, Kalista Renata in the world. They showed the world how to play that. They've taken some knocks since then, though. Didn't manage to go to international competition and struggled in spring as well on a roster which had a level of hype around them. Of course, losing Rookie, it's a little bit awkward for them, but they would love to find themselves some of that form, which has gone amiss for the last split or two. Coming around to the second dragon, they have ults, they have summoners. What can they do? They also have themselves first into the river. Can they protect that position with Maokai ult? That's going to be the most important thing.
Remember, AL got the first Drake here, so this would only be one for NIP if they get it. Pull in onto Zora. He's down before the fight even begins here. The roots across the team as well, but here comes Xiaohao to turn it around, and in the meantime, Pop Blossom for Hardest alone. He's gone so deep for the Pop Blossom, but no follow-up from the team whatsoever. And that means a double kill for Photic as well as a Drake.
That was a very messy approach from Anyone's Legend. It felt like their multiple engaged champions have found some good angles individually, but they have to be in concert. And, well, the bigger they are, apparently the harder they fall, as you can't quite get that Pop Blossom off on the right side of the fight. Xiaohao had a great job there, making sure that Invincible couldn't use that Mega Narc to his own advantage. That's one half of the fight. When you look at the other half, though, it's just completely a miss from what Anyone's Legend were trying to do as a team. As we were saying just before this, Photic and Schwar, they had a lot of tools available to them. They had the chakrams as well onto the Aphelios. Large amounts of damage, but look how these big plays are happening on the different sides of the fight. If they happen all in one place, awesome, but you can't split them apart like that.
Yeah. First off, great hook coming out from Draw to start the fight, so Zora's pulled in before really AL were ready to fight, but also great presence of mind from Angel, right? Sees that hard as well. He saw that Xiaohao was going for the flank. It was actually harder in the end, but just trying to deny that entry to the backside of the play while Photic is the one killing off Zora. So really, really great coordination from the side of NIP to deny entry there from AL. And AL, you know, bit discombobulated there, but with a great pull from Drone. Not much they can do about that one. Harder has found Invincible in the top lane, but even with a rocket there, it's not going to be enough. And it will be answered with a tier 1 in the mid lane.
Okay, this is really awkward now for AL. They're looking for a big engage, trying to buck this play.
Drone just stands and tanks him, flashes out. Giga Chad Draw right there. As Photic, what was that? Just Gale forces in, has to flash straight back out. iBoy is caught alone at Raptors for some reason, as Invincible flings the ball back into the play. Zora flashes out, and it's an explosive fight, that's for sure.
Yes, it is. Still trying to make sense of that one, because it feels like, again, much like that fight we saw around that dragon, except kind of flipped towards the other team this time, a little bit discoordinated. A couple of plays happening apart from each other. If they happened all at the same time, might have looked a little bit more clean. Kind of scuffed the engage a little bit. Invincible does go down. Looked like it was an incredible Mega Gnar angle. Couldn't quite get that knockout blow, though. Still, NIP walking away with a number of turrets falling down. They have a lot of gold in pocket. And for a team that has very good side laning position, taking down that mid lane outer turret makes it even harder for anyone's Legend to kind of balance the map and deal with split pushes when they go to those side lanes later into the game.
Certainly does. As Photic draw. Moving in now to clear these waves. And I have to say that these fights, they're feeling a bit weird. I want to see a replay of what actually happened there, especially with iBoy. I feel like iBoy was caught outside of Raptors. I'm not sure how he ended up at Raptors on his own. I'm not sure what.
I think there are some things that's better off not knowing. When you see a Jinx like completely in the middle of no one's land, I'm like, look, I just don't need to know. Just don't do it again.
Yeah, part of me was like excited that iBoy's back in the LPL. The man is a legend, but I feel like in recent years that has kind of been iBoy's MO as like sort of mispositioning, being a bit
ask
too
and you
confident.
shall receive. There's a Scion.
Look at this.
No, he's not disconnected. He's just the bouncer. And that does a really important thing of stopping ZDZ getting good range to deal with Photic. Photic then uses the safety that is support for him to do whatever that was. And in the retreat, things just get really split from AL. They are very fortunate. Invincible takes a couple of tower shots and at least delivers one kill back.
Yeah, Xiaohao kind of saving the day there. Clones and Cyclones to peel the rest of the team. Zora using that stopwatch. That'll be on cooldown now. Drake coming up in a minute. And so the fight for River Vision begins between the two teams. The fight for mid priority as iBoy will be able to clear things up there. I think perhaps just getting a little too confident in that previous fight, but with Kraken Slayer on, almost towards that Infinity Edge, you can see Photic way ahead in AD carry items. The Ghost Blade there for Angel as well. I'm not really sure that AL can win a team fight right now.
And that's going to be a very difficult thing for them to contend with, because what does this team do besides that? They can engage in mid lane is what they can try.
Yeah, Photic Gale Force is out. Can he survive? No. Good pickup by Xiaohao and Arda. Now the re-engages, the roots come across the team. Angel's here and certainly has damage to work with. Zora goes down 1-for-1 now. But it's AD carry for support. But AL blinking health bars. I don't really know if they can contest still.
And while that's happening, Dragon is spawning right now, and Invincible is pushing in the bot lane. So Invincible continuing to push on that side of the map. That's going to open them up to take this Dragon. Xiaohao has no ultimate, and despite the fact that he's 4-0 on this Wukong, doing well on the pick after getting that early jungle advantage, AL cannot find the grouped up fight wins.
I don't mind the attempt from AL, though, because we just established, right, look, AL are probably not going to win a 5v5 with this gold deficit. So they try and make a play onto Photic. He's clearing the wave. They know he doesn't have flash. Like, I don't hate the attempt. They do actually get the pick ultimately. Unfortunately, just kind of overcommitted to the play and NIP. Able to trade evenly, so it didn't lead to anything. But I like that AL aren't just accepting their fate here. They're still fighting for ways in.
Yeah, looking for that entry into Valhalla one way or another. NIP, though, they get themselves those two dragons. It's a Hextech Rift, obviously one of the strongest souls that we do get in the current meta of League of Legends. However, we've reached Act 2 of our LPL game. That happens quite a lot here. The Baron spawn. Anything can happen around this Baron spawn in the LPL. Even teams that are very far behind have been very good at judging the game and saying, look, as long as we get a fight beyond this point, we can try and take that Baron and snowball it into a win. So that's what AL are probably looking for now. Look for some opportunistic picks. See if they can find Shadow out of position. He's not tanky. He's gone first strike. He's going towards an AP build. That'll probably be their win condition. This is... You got to count your minions, folk. That's one more than there should be. One minion. Photic just about managed to buy enough space for a turnaround to come in, but he's just caught out on that wave in a way that everyone is doing so against Nico right now.
Yeah. I feel like there's going to be a turning point where people habitually count minions, and even in games where Nico isn't being played, people will be like, how many minions are in that wave? It's going to become a habit at some point. But I don't feel like we're there just yet. It's a 4,000 gold lead, though, for NIP, and now they're starting to set up around Baron, and they're happy to set up on the top side and leave Invincible down to bully away in the side lane. ZDZ, this lane is not getting any easier for him, as this is Na's comfort zone. Being mini and being able to just brute force things. A TP from Angel from the top side. He's crashed the wave there. He's now trying to move into River with his team through mid lane.
Both these teams know exactly what's up, though. You have to have control around this Baron area. And if you give up a pick around this point in the game too, things will start falling apart. Invincible, making sure that ZDZ is not available for an engage attempt with that ultimate, pushing him into that inner turret. Very important to make sure that NIP can keep themselves safe in this mid lane. AL, they're just trying to find a pick onto probably Shadow or Photic. Those are their two key targets. Need to take one of them off the board.
Oh, Zora. Whoa, that's, what, 3 auto attacks? And Zora through his W nearly goes down. Angel has to flash. Cyclone is there. The Rocket as well. But he walks away with his life. And that's good enough. Shock Blast in to set up a shutdown. But in the meantime, Photic's been caught. Shadow with a big play on the backside alongside Harder here. And Invincible now trying to clean up. ZDZ goes down. iBoy still going strong though, but not for long. Oh, the flash at the last second. Angel can't find the kill. It's real messy, but it still comes up NIP.
It does, and AL, they try again to try and find an angle with that Nico ultimate, with Xiaohao with Cyclone, but it just isn't quite clean enough. They don't get themselves that distancing. NIP managed to turn things around, and it's just going from bad to worse. Invincible almost dying for the turret, but instead will just blow the flash.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see him commit quite that hard to the turret, but Harder nearly finding himself a kill there.
You wouldn't understand, it's a side laning thing.
Hey, I'm a Yorick enjoyer. I've felt that feeling. Let's take another look at what happened onto Photic here. I think maybe just overestimating his safety is Harder. Really nice flash forwards.
Yeah, and they've been trying to catch this Aphelios so often, and they did manage to catch him in that last mid lane play. It just wasn't quite enough to see things through. Maokail's been thrown again.
So kicked off, Invincible, the target, jumps over the wall, will go down. Good advantage for AL, can they turn it into more? Shadow the next target, as iBoy starting to get these resets going. That's 2, ZDZ can't be taken down by Photic, he doesn't have the damage for that. It's Harder sending his clone to recall in the face of NIP. ZDZ almost going down here. Remember the mid-tier 2, very low from earlier. NIP trying to threaten that, but AL having none of it, goes straight to the Baron.
It's the second act of the game. The Baron's alive. AL, like every other LPL team, knows that everything can turn around this Baron.
An attempt there. The Moonlight Vigil comes in. What is that damage as Angel arrives as well? It's 3v5 and NIP is somehow making it work. ZDZ will go down to Photic next as Angel on the hunt here. Harder the target and Angel goes in. One more auto would do the trick and he finds it. Xiaohao now in a 1v1 and will get the shutdown. It's 3v2 on the map, I believe. No. 2 are over in the base. It's Tro and Photic on the scene of the Baron as Shadow now re-arrives on the scene.
It's an absolute brawl. It's a bar fight. We've got some broken legs and some black eyes across the board. Angel's down, but he is the only member of NIP not present at that Baron. AL felt like they found an angle, but there's just way too much damage from the Jace and the Aphelios with all of their long-range bursty ultimates and combos to come into play. At least AL have an angle towards this dragon with the Hextech gates allowing them to get back out into the map. It means that there might at least be a contest, but they're still going to have to wait for their solo laners to arrive by foot because they don't have teleports.
Yeah, I don't think that this is something AL can actually go for, to be honest, because with the Hex gates there, NIP will be able to arrive, and they have an 8,000 gold lead at this point. I feel like these fights have been way closer than they have any right to be. AL are fighting tooth and nail, but they are losing those fights tooth and nail. ZDZ! He's gone real deep on this one, and Invincible just going to stack Meganar off of it. In fact, not even going to get any Meganar, just going to get a kill instead. But it bought space for the dragon to be taken by AL. Was this intentional? I don't know, but hey, we'll take it.
Did anyone order Uber Eats? I think your delivery driver's here. That was a decision, and I understand the thought process of I'm just going to buy time for my team to get this dragon. That's the most important thing. Not quite sure you need to give your life for it. So this is going back towards that Baron though. AL, they found a couple of pickoffs before this. Again, they understand that the Baron is, that is the main objective. If you get that, you can change so much this gold deficit. But this Nico ultimate, as opposed to the last 2, doesn't catch Photic. And then Photic does that. Then Angel adds in the rest of the damage. You absolutely shred through those HP bars. Despite the fact that the jungler and the top laner are gone, the damage was still always on the board for NIP, and they shred them with it.
Yeah. Yeah, like ZDZ going full zealot there. My life for Aya, or my life for the dragon. Doesn't quite work, but now AL forced into the base. They're against the Baron. Whether they got the Drake or not, Angel is going to be able to get the tier 2 in the top side as he has just solo pressure there. And we'll get that increased gold, remember. It's like 600 not gold for that tower. Plus,
oh, as if
global
Angel
gold.
wasn't doing enough damage already.
I know, he
Just
is
the extra goal
real scary
definitely
on that
needed
Jace.
that.
I feel like Jace is one of those champions as well, where when you think about Jace, you think of him as that like poke champion that likes a siege, likes an elongated standoff, right? But actually, when you get to like 3-4 items, yes, you do like that situation, but you can essentially function as an assassin as well in the right moment. When you go a hammer form, you really chunk.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of LeBlanc, because LeBlanc is a similar kind of thing. That poke goes from being half your HP to all of it. And at this point in time, NIP, they really don't need that much of an opening to land that damage. They're currently trying to play on multiple lanes. This might be an opportunity for AL to find themselves a clutch engage while NIP are moving between lanes. There was a moment while they're on all three. They've just kind of trimmed that down to 2 lanes, just mid lane and top lane. AL, they need to find an engage though. They're just getting whittled.
Hard as a minion. He's a caster minion. Will it work? Will he find his opportunity? His 7th game of LPL, and he wants to make the play. He's onto Voting. It works. The cleanse comes on through. Cyclone is there. Voting on the back line. Saved by Droll. But now Xiaohao turns golden. Invincible arrives on the scene. Shadow down. Both junglers down. There's now Droll tanking up. But Invincible's mega. And he finds 4 with his ultimate. Angel in the fray as well. But Voting can't get close to do damage. He's been abandoned. Invincible can't live up to his name.
And it's another Nico Jedi mind trick. These aren't the minions you're looking for. There's an extra caster in there, and they don't count the minions. Photic, once again, doesn't die to the Nico ultimate, but this time the chunk is large enough that there is one AD carry able to fight, and one which has to just run for the hills. NIP, despite their huge gold lead, cannot finish the game there, and they take themselves a teamfight loss.
And once again, these fights that have no right to be as close as they are. Look at the gold difference. It's almost 10,000 in favor of NIP. But every single team fight this game has been so close and so scrappy. I feel like if AL's macro was a little bit better, this would be a totally different game.
Absolutely. And again, this is one of the things which I've loved watching about this summer split, even though we're only a couple of weeks into it, of LPL. Every team, regardless if they're first place or 17th place right at the bottom, they understand you just need to take one good fight at the right point in the game and you can really turn things on their head. Gold difference be damned, a good angle is always a good angle. This is the angle which happens in that last fight. It's a minion trick, once again. Maybe they've fooled them by disguise themselves as a melee minion so much in this game that they weren't expecting the caster minion. You have to count all types, folks. And Harder lands himself a really good engage. Just the fact that Photic has to blow so much of his defensive potential going backwards, blows that ultimate onto a stopwatch as well, means that a lot of that gold difference in the AD carries is just not apparent. One AD carry is doing damage, the other one isn't.
And I feel like if NIP are just more on the same page here, they can walk away without Invincible going down. That can be a neutral fight, right? It's harder. That was a chunk and a half. It was actually a minion health bar, so that wasn't as big of a chunk as it looked like. But they could have walked away from that, but Invincible kind of going in as the rest of the team's going out. And Angel throws a shock blast, but it's really all he could offer. Photic, cleanse available as a QSS now as well. He knows that this Nico is a problem.
We are getting to the point where at least look, Sion's not going to be healthy if he gets hit by all the poke in the world, but he can tank those shock blasts a little easier than the rest of the team. As long as he can stand in front of Angel, block some of this, there's the chance that AL can find themselves in a position to fight.
Invincible turning into Mini Gnar here. AL could potentially push in, but look at the waves on both sides of the map. They are crashing into the base right now. NIP, they've sent Invincible to go get that 3rd Drake for them as they go and contest vision around the Baron area. They don't want to give that up for free as Photic and iBoy on that mid-wave clearance duty. It's January sale right here as the clearance is fully coming on through. But the Drake should be taken down by Invincible. I believe the minions took a tower in the top lane there and are looking towards an inhib as Hard has had to go and answer that fact. You can see the tower incredibly low HP in the bottom lane as well. So those sidewaves doing serious work for NIP.
Yeah, it was very much helped by the fact that NIP did have a brief period of time with the last Baron buff that they could just all sit in different lanes and hit those towers, whittle them down. Inhib towers, yes, they regen over time, but it's a fairly slow thing. Those minion waves finishing off some of that dirty work which has started a little earlier. The next work on the table, though, is setting up against, again, for this Baron, next one of the game, that'll probably be where the next hammer blow lands. Right now, vision control helped out by Maokai saplings, very much in NIP's favor. So what AL need to do, need to get real control of this mid lane wave if they can. They're trying to do another minion trick with the Nico. Not going to find anything at this point, but that's what AL are looking for. A big mid lane engage so they don't have to deal with all of this topside vision from NIP.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one though, as Invincible is just trying to ignore the Scion and go for the tower. Will be able to do so. So tower, take it down. He'll walk away with his life as well. And as he turns mini, he'll continue to threaten. iBoy trying to move down to the bottom side here to potentially get a pick onto the top laner. But the second iBoy shows up vision in the bottom side of the map, you know NIP will go for that Baron.
NIP, they have all the control they need right now. They just need to avoid those clutch engages, which they've fallen a little bit afoul of.
Look at the vision in the bottom side jungle as well. Invincible has so much information to play with. He's under no threat even with these hovers.
That could be so very important because it is that balancing act between top side of the map where you're trying to poke out, get control of that mid wave yourselves if you can, and then also buy space for Invincible. The side laning pressure really becoming very effective. Zora has ult, has flash, might be able to land a stun onto someone.
Look at Invincible. He just walked through the base because the top inhib's open as well. He could just sweep up this entire base. And in the meantime, AL, they're fighting for mid-prio for a Baron that realistically is just not even contestable anymore.
He's literally just there, like, I'm housekeeping. Did you leave a sign on the door? Well, he's there again, trying to go into 1v2 now.
Yeah, hops over the head of ZDZ. Xiao Hao will jump on in as well. Invincible about to turn Mega. He needs to turn Mega, and he does! Jumps away, whiffs the ultimate, finds a stun. Duo with a knock-up onto Xiao Hao. Can they turn it into a fight win? NIP 4v5 at this point. As Harder behind enemy lines, gets onto Angel. The Pop Blossom on 3. This is the moment for AL if they can find Photic. But he's still going strong for now. ZDZ onto that back line.
Down.
3v2 Shadow, and Photic still pushing forwards as the recall from Angel has TP available and he wants to rejoin the fight. He's TPing behind enemy lines. It's no longer Harder on the flank. Angel's found his way into the fray once more. ZDZ, he started the fight with an ult and he'll end the fight with an ult as he leaves his jungler to die.
We've talked about Angel occasionally having those pop-off games, but asked for consistency, and this Jace has been consistently excellent in this first game. NIP, they have to brawl for it, but they're going to walk away with the first game.
Yeah, brawl is definitely the key word for this one. 30 kills in a 35-minute game. It was a quiet early game, but once we got to 20 minutes, nothing but teamfight. ZDZ surviving for now. Baron being used on the super minions. Can they actually end the game? Photic is here with the turret as well. Like you say, iBoy coming back up. One turret down. Should be two as well. They need to finish this Nexus off, but AL are moving on in. Invincible about to turn Mega. Zora's going to go down before the fight once again. As ZDZ tries to charge in. Harder's down though. And that'll be that. iBoy flashing onto the fountain. As NIP take game number 1.
Well, slow early game made up for by a pretty explosive mid and late game. Credit to Anion's Legend where it is due, even when they were very far behind in goal. They find themselves some engaged angles to make the game at least more in question.